In this video, we're going to talk about Deepseek R1. We're going to talk about what the model is about, the limitations of the model, and also how to make inferencing using a Google Colab notebook for free. Okay, so what's so special about this model? Well, simply, it's a Deepseek version 3 model, but it was trained with reinforcement learning. Now, what it allows you to do is essentially have chain of thought reasoning while generating responses, which means it gives you better and more accurate responses. Now here they've provided the evaluation results of the Deepseek R1, the 671 billion parameter model, to the other models like OpenAI O1 and other models. Now what is interesting, or what I'm personally interested, is actually on the distilled model evaluation results. They provided the distilled model evaluations against the other models and showing their performances. And of course, they're probably beating out in many different scenarios with really good performance. And they've given you the open source parameters that you guys can download and use, and some distilled versions to be able to use it on your edge devices or smaller applications. This video will be broken down into two main sections. First, we're going to talk about what the model is, what it's about, because they just released the Deepseek V1 a few days ago. So what is this R1 version of this? And also how to actually use it so you can start developing. We're also going to look into the paper it published and also some limitations of this model to think about. So first things first, what are the benchmarks? So as we can see from the paper, we're seeing that the Deepseek R1, the reinforcement version of the Deepseek model, competing against OpenAI O1 model. And this is interesting because this is the first time any open source model not only surpassed GPT-4, but also is competing with the O1 reasoning model. Now this is actually very, very new. This is the first time an open source model is competing at this level with such complex reasoning capabilities. Now, of course, whether or not this is reasoning, true reasoning, or just mimicking reasoning, well, that's a different philosophical question. We're not going to focus on that, but we're primarily going to focus on how well it is performing and also how we can potentially use it. So, as you can see from here, it's pretty much beating out or being competitive on different benchmarks over here. And also, we can go through the paper over here, talking about the different ways on how they achieved it. Well, the main idea from this paper, or the main star of this paper, is actually how they train the model. So the reason why this is interesting is because this has more reasoning capabilities on this model, and they achieved that using the reinforcement learning algorithm called the group relative policy optimization, which is just a reward way of training the model to be able to have reasoning capabilities. Now, I'm not going to go in depth on how they actually did it. I don't think that's very interesting to a lot of you guys watching it, so we're going to skip that. Now, what I did find interesting in this paper is actually how honest they were in the paper. They talked about what worked, but also what didn't work. So in this chapter with unsuccessful attempts, they talked about how the process reward model did not work very well with them. They've also tried with Monte Carlo tree search, inspired by the AlphaGo and AlphaZero, if you guys remember, and how they didn't actually achieve what they wanted with it. Now, I think that's very interesting for the research community and the open source AI community to be able to use this as information to try newer experiments. Now, they've also compared it for evaluation with Deepseek R1 compared to OpenAI O1 Mini, and it is getting 90% upwards on most of the benchmarks over here, which is very, very impressive. Now, some of the limitations that they have provided is actually, this is not a very general model. It has some limitations where it can only, or it actually functions best on specific tasks, where the Deepseek R1 is not as good compared to Deepseek V3, which I actually made a video about a few days ago when it comes to function calling, multi-complex role-playing, JSON output, and many more. However, they're still quite potent when you specifically use them on tasks after you fine-tune it, I would presume, with long chain of thought in various tasks. And also they mentioned that currently the R1 is not really good at language mixing, which means it's not really optimized for Chinese and English and other languages, and can mix up when they're formulating an answer. They also talked about that the software engineering tasks are not really well done by this model, so you're probably well off using another model like Deepseek V3 or other open source models. So again, I really, really appreciate how honest they were. I wish many people in the research and AI community were as honest as them, and really like how they're going about this. Now, to be able to use this model, we're going to use a Google Colab Pro Plus with an A100 GPU, and we've installed a VLLM package. Now, If you guys want to use various other models provided by the Deepseek R1, then you may need to log in to Hugging Face Hub to be able to put the Hugging Face token in your environment variables. And because I already have it over here, I'm going to sneakily use that and pass it on to my environmental variable to make things quicker. Now, to the more fun stuff, how do we actually serve the model or deploy the model in this environment to be able to use it? Now to do that, we're going to use VLLM serve, and we can use the Llama 8 billion or Llama 3.18 billion using VLLM serve. And then we're going to pass in some extra parameters with dtype auto, API key with the token key over here, and %. The reason why we did that is because we are going to be running this in the background. And to do that, we're going to use nohup. And this will essentially run the model in the background while we can execute it using other packages. So let's try that. Now, this is going to take a few minutes for the model to be able to download in our environment and deploy it. So please be patient. Now the model is being served. Now what we can do is we can start to make some inferencing on this. Now, as we can see over here, it is being hosted on the localhost 8000 port. So what we can do is we can import OpenAI's package and load our client. Now in the client, we're going to pass in the base URL localhost 8000 v1, and we're going to pass in the token key. We have defined token key as token ABC123 as an example. Now we're going to load that. Now we're going to ask the age-old question of who is the best basketball player of all time. And we can do it like this. We pass in the model name, which is a Deepseek R1 Distill Llama 8 billion. And we're going to pass in the message as who is the best basketball player of all time of recent generation NBA. We're going to execute that, and then we're going to print. Now, please give it some time while it's making inferencing. Now, it starts with a think tag over here, and it's going through different reasoning on who is the best basketball player of our generation. And at the end, it comes off as LeBron James, which is absolutely correct. People who hate on LeBron James, well, grow up. Anyway, guys, that's a quick video on Deepseek R1. I hope you found this video insightful. If you guys did, please feel free to subscribe. I make similar videos like these. Alright guys, hope to see you in my next video. Have a nice day.